Tonight we're going to take this knife, Benchmade Mini Adira, from factory edge to this. Please follow along as we convert this rough factory edge with a hanging burr and other imperfections to this near mirror polish edge with a hair whittling apex. To do this, I used my TS PROF Kadet, which I packaged into this old cigar box because mine did not come with their carrying case. And as you can see, the entire machine and the plates are in there. I used a shotgun shell holder that allows me to carry all 5 sharpening plates that came with the kit. As you know, I named Zarlk copy of this device my sharpening tool for the year 2025 because for 1/4 of the cost it delivers the same performance. One thing it doesn't do is break down into small parts like these to fit into 9.5 by 6 3/4 by 5.5 inches cigar box. To assist in the setup, I'm using this Corolata pocket digital inclinometer. It's rechargeable. It's a new acquisition for me. All the tools I use in this video, by the way, will be linked in the description. Those links help out my channel, but you don't have to use them. Thank you very much if you do. As always, I start the setup by pulling the finest grit stone that's available to me. This is 1000 grit, and I am going to clamp the knife. But before I do, I would like to show you what the edge looks like with the help of my handheld USB-C microscope that also doubles up as a camera because it comes with its own app that can also record videos and photos. Here's the edge. This is what a typical Benchmade edge looks like with magnification, except for the select edge knives, which are much finer. But as you can see, there is a pretty rough media grind. I estimate 300 at best. Apex has a lot of burr, visible as a bright reflective line here. Here's the sharpening tool. That doesn't look too bad. They did not climb onto the plunge grind, which is great. And let's see. Let's look at that apex again. Looks like the burr is rolling over on the opposite side a little bit. We are ready to set the knife up, but first I remove the thumb studs on all Benchmades because where they're located, they'll be interfering with the sharpening plate. The important thing to bring to your attention, I do not position the blade parallel to the bracket or perpendicular to the clamps because this knife has a very pronounced belly, and if I set it up parallel to the back bracket, it would end up having a much wider edge near the tip than on the straightaway. So that's why I'm doing this. The torque here is 25 to 30 inch-pounds, and working at my house, I usually use the torque driver to set the torque, but since I'm away here, I don't have it with me. However, I'll provide a link to it in the description as well. It's very helpful. I am now marking the plate because TS Prof in their infinite wisdom marked it where the grit is invisible when the plate is installed into the holder. And now I'm using the Sharpie to put witness marking on the blade, which will enable me to see where material is being removed. And I am setting the angle up to the tip because I want the width of the entire bevel be similar to that near the tip. And as you can see, with a little bit of adjustment, I am already there. Let's measure the angle. If you need to know the angle for the next sharpening, first I am zeroing this angle finder on the rod, and now I'm placing it into this flat, and it gives me, I read 16 3/4 degree. I have no idea why I'm signing in the video, but now I'm flipping the knife over, and I am going to check how repeatable this TS Prof Kadet is by, well, I'm going to first mark the blade, but now I'm going to check, and I am getting the same exact number, 16 3/4 degrees. Just checking the zero on the rod, and it's a little tricky because you have to locate it right at the same spot, just on the opposite side. So the angle is not exactly the same, and it's the knife, not the device, because we already checked the zero and the sharpening angle, and we know they match the opposite side. So now I'm going to grind this side to match the other side. I'm hoping I'm making sense because I'd like the knife to have the same width of secondary bevel on both sides of the blade. One more check, the hardware is tight, everything is secure. By the way, don't push this inner clamp all the way toward the end of the slot, because there's an imperfection in how TS PROF manufactured. That clamp can end up riding onto this radius right there, and then your angle of sharpening may change. So you don't want to push it all the way to the very end of the slot on any of your sharpenings. All right, let's shake and bake, baby. I hear a lot of comments from my viewers about how great TS PROF sharpening plates are, and I just wanted to see for myself. So this is the 150 grit, and the closest comparison plate, I have a very, very cheaply made Zarok 180 grit plate that shipped originally with my Gen 3 Zarok sharpener. The three key factors to the diamond plate's quality are stone size consistency, stone density, and retention of the stones on the plate. And as you can see, TS PROF consistency of size is just not there. You have very large stones and much smaller stones all mixed together, so you will not get a consistent striation pattern on your blade using this plate. Let's see the cheapo here. The diamond size consistency and their distribution are both better than on the TS PROF, which is ironically 35 times more expensive on a per plate basis. Now that I'm home editing the video, here's the surface of the SY Tool 200 grit plate. I purchased this set over a year ago from when I'm filming this video, and as you can see, the consistency, density, and retention are great. All right, you listened to my musings enough. Let's start sharpening this knife. I'm using the 150 you just saw. And now I'd like to point your attention to the direction of your strokes when you sharpen. They're supposed to be perpendicular. That's what I'm trying to show here. Perpendicular to the bracket that holds the clamps. Another way to put it, my hand is always moving in the same direction, not rotating with the rod. And even though it looks to you as if I'm swiping or sweeping the blade, that is not true, because the diamonds, they are at all times traveling perpendicular to this bracket. However, with the roughest plate that you're going to use, you can allow yourself some back and forth motion, and this way you will not be able to control the direction as well as if you were going just into the edge. But because the goal here is to match the angle of the edge here to that on the other side of the blade, and therefore keep the width of the grind same, I am trying to remove material quicker than I would normally do that. By the way, this is the first or second time I'm using this plate set, and so a great idea strikes me. Why not collect the dust and see how much of it is diamonds and how much are metal shavings? Oh, another thing I forgot to mention yet, it's very important to set your forward stop for the plate, more important than the back stop actually, so that your plate will never jump off the edge and scratch the primary grind. It happened to me before, so you need to remember to set the stop closest to you in such a manner that at no point along the edge will the plate have an opportunity to jump off. Now that I have a uniform edge, it's time to check on our shavings to see if any of them are diamonds or are they all metal from the blade. And to do that, my neck flashlight, Olight Eye Mini, comes in handy because it has a very strong magnet in the base. And so I'm sweeping it around, allowing the metal shavings to end up on the base of the flashlight. And now let's see what's left. I see a few particles here and there. Let's sweep it again. And I think it's mostly metal shavings. So the diamond retention is pretty good. And if you did opt to purchase the TS PROF sharpener, that's the plates that come with it. So you don't really have a choice. You will end up with those 5 plates no matter what. Under the microscope, you can immediately see that those larger diamonds on the plate made deeper striations, but because I set the angle of the grind to that of the tip, my tip looks perfectly flat. There's no rollover. And the inconsistencies in the striations are due to the back and forth movement when I was grinding. Another method to my madness is I do the roughest pass on both sides, flipping the blade in between, But then I stay on one side through the entire progression of the plates to form nice, fat, well-developed burr at the apex, and then I flip it. So for this sharpening, I went 150, flip, 150, 220, 400, 600, 1000, flip, 220, 400, 600, 1000, and then clean up. While I sharpen, I usually keep my microscope plugged in into the handheld and periodically check the condition of the edge to see if I'm making any gross mistakes. This is the 150 on the opposite side near the tip. Tip is very important to check out to make sure you're not rolling it lower. Here what it looks like after the 400 plate on the right side. You can see my striations figure themselves out and the fat burr is forming at the apex. And just before I switch to 1000, after the 600 pass, I can see the burr trying to come off. So you can see this fat line is the burr, that's that hair, and it's covered with smaller burrs. You will be tempted to remove it by hand, which you could, but you will be damaging the apex at this point, so resist the temptation. Your patience will be rewarded because after doing a couple final passes, you shall be able to see that the burr is mostly off on its own. Always a good idea to take a look at the tip periodically. I am very paranoid about rolling the tip over because that then creates a need for a big resharpening. Right now the point looks good. There's a little bit of a radius right here, but this is burr hanging down, so it's not fully removed. The rest of the edge is burr free by now, or has very small burr, I should say. Unfortunately, after I take a look, after final passes with 1000 grit, I can see that my impatience in the beginning when I was going back and forth caused these incorrect striations. I am not about to resharpen this blade yet, but be advised, if you are working on a high polished edge, you should not be doing back and forth at any point, especially with a rougher media. One last look at the tip before stropping. As you can see, it came to a pretty nice point right there. So my technique worked out well. There's definitely still some burr, but we are about to strop. And you should be asking yourself a question. Well, this set didn't come with a stropping plate, and you left your big handheld strop at home. Here's the burr still there. So I'm going to give it a few more passes with 1000 grit stone on both sides. After a few minutes of that, I'm ready for stropping. One more look before I do under the microscope, and you can see that it's all coming to fruition. How can I tell? There are those sections of the apex that are completely burr free. That means the burr has been weakened and will just simply come off. And here's a direct look at the apex. To strop, I have this very thin piece of leather that used to be an underside or the liner of a trouser belt. That's the rest of it. And I always put it in my travel kit just in case I need to strop something real quick. I will show you how to attach it to the plate holder now. And you simply wrap one end around the plate and then insert this end into the plate holder. I have another Sharpener Zarelg Gen 3. It's a lot easier to do it on it because the two plate holder pieces are always aligned. But after a little fiddling with it, I was able to align the TS PROF plate holders so that I can insert the other end while maintaining tension on the leather. And now I am just going to strop. So this piece of leather, I use just a green polishing compound that you can get anywhere. Sometimes it comes with sharpening kits. If you were to purchase a Beavercraft handheld strop, it would come with it. And you just do the stropping. Obviously, you have to pull away from the edge. Here with the strop, you can make any kind of motions. My one rule for stropping is there are no rules in stropping. And once again, I'm using the microscope to make sure nothing funny is going on. You can see that the apex is getting cleaner and cleaner. I haven't flipped the knife on the opposite side yet, so that's coming up. All the latches and levers work really smoothly on the TS Prof. And I guess that's where the extra $300 that you paid for it goes into. And another way to check your progress, if you don't have a microscope at this point, you should be able to grab a piece of paper and do this. Or maybe roll it into a tubular shape and see if you can start the cut this way. There you go. So it's not perfect, but it's ready to be removed from the sharpener. And as I do so, I would like to ask you to hit a like button. I'd really appreciate it. Or even subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet. And please don't forget to hit notification bell while you're at it so you don't miss any of my cool content on sharpening and knife reviews. And I appreciate it if you've already done that. What I haven't done yet is do the final stropping, and this is what I'm doing. I'm not removing the leather off the sharpening plate yet. I'm just going to run a few passes like this. Obviously, what I'm missing here is my diamond paste that I have at home, but you know, it should do until I get there. At a minimum, I know that now I will have a very, very sharp knife in my pocket. Not to mention an extremely good looking knife now that I have consistent width of the edge and a near mirror sheen on it as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to pack everything up, clean up this mess, put away all my tools. Now that I came up with this neat storage idea, it's easy for me to do. Of course, I have to separate the two halves of the rod, as you just saw, and unscrew the clamps themselves. I keep the thumb screws together. The gearbox just simply slides off the sun gear, and now I can put the base in. I cut up a very old gym mat. That's why you see foam on one side and kind of Velcro loop side on the other. You can use any type of dense foam. The setup is new to me, that's why I'm fiddling with it a little bit, but it all comes together like so. That holds the base from sliding. Put my clamps in thusly. Line everything up. The angle finder goes in there. Now the plates, for some reason, for me, the plates are the hardest part because these are stretchy shotgun shell holders. But eventually I managed to get all of them in. This way I know they're secured and not rubbing onto each other. And if you have a sixth plate, you can just simply put it into the plate holder and stove the rod thusly. And the other half, luckily for me, fits perfectly in. Here's the gimbal out of the way. There's even a space to package my microscope. I'm wrapping the cord. Here you go. In it goes. In it goes. And there's another piece of foam to hold it all together. When I close it, you know, don't forget your tools and Sharpie and all that important stuff in there. Leather. The green paste and this handy little ratchet tool that folds neatly. Now you close and latch. You're ready to take this bad boy on your next adventure.